Salutations YouTube, and welcome to part 2 of my Yobo FC Game Console video. This is TJ'sTechCorner. I wanted to make some minor details or point out some things in this video that I didn't point out in part 1, and I can only do so much in that video, so I wanted to throw in a part 2 and explain some details on different variations of the Yobo FC Game Console. There's a newer version out on the market which is like half the size, so it's like up to here. In fact, let me go ahead and pull up a picture on my phone to give you an idea of what the new one looks like. I don't have that one. I went for the older one because I think the older one looks neater with the square shape as opposed to a smaller rectangle. This is what the newer one looks like if anyone's interested. It's the Yobo FC console. And the controllers come with the NES style controllers and not these turbo controllers, which I'll get to those in just a moment. And I have the silver one in the back. Again, I'll get to that later in the video, so keep watching. This is the box to the Yobo FC Game Console. This has a picture of the second variation or third variation, depending on how you look at it and when these systems came out. Now, it comes with the AV cable and AC adapter. I use the splitters that I was afraid that was going to break on the back, but they fit just fine. It just took wear and tear. So it comes with great quality, easy button operation, high performance, AV output, slow and turbo functions, LED lights, and 2 controllers included. And I got the red and white variation. I mean, the silver and black and the indigo and white aren't neat, but I went for red and white because I wanted one that looked similar to a Famicom. Alright, I've shown the system around. Something I need to point out on the different variations. Mine has the labels Controller 1 and Controller 2 in the front instead of up here, like most other NES systems. And the interesting thing is the Hyperkin I have also has it on the front. Go figure. But all the other variations of the Yobo FC Game Console, if you look at the box art, sorry, I have it upside down, they're supposed to be on the top. Now, if you have the opaquement buttons like this with the LED in the middle and Controller 1 and Controller 2 are on the top, chances are you'll have the one with the normal NES sounding music and not the Famiclone style music, which I was kind of hoping I'd gotten the one with the normal NES music, but hey, it was only for $7, so you win some, you lose some, but for $7, this is not a bad deal. Also, this read my copy of NES Open Tournament Golf out of the box. The Hyperkin one I've mentioned, I had to open this apart to get that to read it. Now, also another thing I need to point out, I did open this off camera. This has a system NTSC sticker. If it says Yobo Gameware on the back, it's the one with the NES sounding music. I wish I'd looked at the pictures deeply before I bought this, but oh well. Oh, also I fixed the dust cover. When I did the unboxing, the dust cover got stuck. All it needed was fiddling with the springs, and then that fixed the trick. So, minor annoyance. Yeah. Anyway, this one does have a chemical smell, but it's not as bad as the Hyperkin. Yeah, the Hyperkin one smells worse. But you got your jacks on the back. This thing works good. Although I need to point out one thing. When I use my 5K TV, I use this Armor 3 AV to HD adapter. I use this to play my NES games on my TV. I mean, sure, my TV has built-in AV jacks, but this makes it look nicer and crisper on my TV. My AV Famicom, this works great. Same with my Super Famicom and other systems with AV cables. The Hyperkin, this detects it just fine. For whatever reason, this Yobo FC Game Console, it has weird stuff going on. I'll make a separate video on what it does if you're interested in that. And for whatever reason, when I try using NES Open Tournament Golf, this did not work with that game out of the box. This one did, because the solder joints on those pins, they're all soldered on this one. This one had a few pins not soldered all the way, so I was unable to play that. So point for Yobo for that. Although point for Hyperkin for having more stuff soldered to the board. The Hyperkin one has more of that stuff soldered to the board. So, but other than that, maybe I might Frankenstein the two, and I'll have one good NES system. Also, I need to point out on the version 1 of the FC Game Console, the one with the transparent buttons, unless you know how to use a soldering gun, I would advise you to stay away from that one, because there's a voltage regulator in there that will die, and you will need to replace it. I mean, it's real easy. All you need is a solder sucker and suck the solder, and then solder in a new one, and then you're good to go. Luckily, there's a video on YouTube for that if you have that version and your Yobo kicks the, well, stops powering on. You don't have to worry about that with the version 2 and version 3, because those don't have that voltage regulator issue. Mine hasn't done that, so I never have to worry about that. But I may have to take some parts from my Hyperkin and put it in my Yobo, so it will work with this just fine. I'll just have to look at the chips, well, not the chips, but the caps and capacitors, and then, you know, get this fully working. So that's a project for another day. And now let's talk about the controllers. Now, I've heard mixed debate on people saying these controllers are great and these controllers are junk. Here is the elephant in the room, or, well, where things get interesting. I'll go ahead and move the box out of the way, and I'll demonstrate it with, well, this controller. On the left, this is the normal one that came with the version 1, and this is the one that came with my system. Now, of course, the older version is going to have the better feeling buttons. They're nice and tactile, and the D-pad feels nice. Well, the D-pad also feels nice on the version 2. If you like the Sega Genesis D-pad, you're going to love these controllers. Although your B and A buttons and turbo buttons will be all mushy. So it can be fixed. You just need to open up the controller, reseat some things, and then, well, the buttons will work like it's supposed to. And also another thing I need to point out, the older variation is better. How do you tell the difference between these two? I wish they were the same color, but for starters, you look at the back. On the back, the older one says Yobo Gameware on here. The other one doesn't have anything on it. The screws on the older model are black, and the ones on the newer one are the normal silver color. And also, you may not know this, but the older one, if you follow the magical cord, follow the magical cord, follow the magical. Yeah, the newer one has a shorter cable, but the older one, you get more cord, as you can tell. I think that's like a foot more. And I'm not sure if you can tell, but look at the plugs on this. The older Yobo controller has a much thicker plug. So therefore, this will work with an actual NES. I've used it on my AV Famicom. This controller works great. This one, oh, and by the way, I've mentioned you can use actual NES controllers on this, but if you were to take the newer controller and try to stick it in your NES, well, let's try the Hyperkin and see if it'll fit. Well, no. It won't fit. For some reason. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but the controller ports are slightly different. You stick it in, this fits. But if you were to try to stick it in another NES clone, I don't know about the retro entertainment system. It might work with that, but for a regular NES and the Hyperkin, this will not fit because the holes are, well, are a little smaller than liking. Now you could make the holes a bit bigger, but yes, it will work on your NES or other NES clone, but you risk the chance of it not working with this ever again. So you have to ask yourself, is it really worth doing that? Well, that's for you to decide. Or maybe you could take the cord off of a NES, well, and again, for the version 2, why would you want to do that? The version 1 I can understand, because this is a much nicer feeling controller. And if anyone's curious, if this does work on the Yobo FC Game Console, yes. And the Hyperkin one, well, yes. It may not look like it's inserted, or it may not be inserted all the way, but this does register on this system. And I also used this on the AV Famicom, and it worked just fine. So, things I need to point out if you're after a Yobo FC Game Console, excluding the new one that I've shown a picture on eBay. If you're after the version with, well, the one that sounds like NES music, make sure you look at the power and reset buttons. And make sure there's a picture of it open with these up here, because you may end up having issues. Only go for the version 1 if you're willing to take a soldering gun out or it's already been fixed. So, but if you're just getting it for the controllers, buy the version 1. But if you want something that's more reliable, get this version or the other version that I don't have. Just remember, if you get the version I have with the labels on the front instead of the top, it's not going to work with this AV to HD adapter. Unless you can modify this with some stuff to get this to work with that. If you can, please let me know in the comments. I'd be willing to take this apart and get this Yobo working with that. Anyway, thanks for watching. This is TJ's Tech Corner signing off. So, take care.